We are live. Welcome to OnSet. I am Daniel Norton. This is Marissa. Over here on the mighty mix is Seth. See how I get the one headphone up thing going on? It's classy.
Can't see me.
Can't see Seth. We moved the camera. There was a poll of whether or not we should see Seth or not, and it was like a 50-50 split. So we're going to block him for half the video, and then we're going to move him back in for the second. So if you want to see Seth, stick around. All right, so one day I'll actually start these on time. All right, so today we're going to talk about how many lights do you need, because that is one of the most common questions I get. The most common is, can I do that with? But the second most common is how many lights, and then the third most common is how many watt seconds do I need? We'll cover the second question because that's the easiest one. So we're going to build a setting with 3 lights, with 2 lights, and then with 1 light. And I'll talk about why you might use different, besides just not owning them, of course, why you might choose to go one way or the other, and some things you can do to kind of compensate when you don't have, let's say, 3 lights to start with. So 3-point lighting, you may have heard a bunch of times, because that's like what people always say, they're like, 3-point lighting. That's second to Rembrandt lighting, right. So 3-point lighting means that there's effectively, in the shot, it appears that there's 3 sources. It could be any combination. Your key light is your main light. That's almost always required. Then you've got fill light to fill in the shadows. You've got background light or separation lights or kickers or all kinds of cool stuff. So we're going to use 3 lights. We're going to make an image, and then we're going to start removing lights, and we'll compensate as we will, and we'll create different moods. So let's just do it. I will try to name every piece of equipment I'm using as I go. I will undoubtedly stop doing that. So if you want to know what something is, please ask. Also, if you have not already started to follow my podcast, I have a podcast. You know what that? Avoice with Daniel Norton. You can follow that podcast. Seth will put a link in the chatty chat box. He'll pin it at the top. All right, so here we go. Since we're going to do 3 lights, and I have Marissa here. Did you want to sit down?
Whatever you want. I can sit down.
She likes to stand when she has heels because she's taller than I am.
It's true.
But we'll go with standing. Sorry, so she's going to stand, maybe go a little bit further back. All right, she's going to be here. We're going to create kind of a nice dramatic portrait. I'm going to start my key light. I'm going to use a beauty dish because, Marissa's beautiful and all that. All right, so put it on this side so you guys can see. This is a beauty dish by Profoto. In this is the light itself is a Profoto B10, which is a 250 watt second flash. This is a beauty dish with a grid on it. It's about 22 inches, so it's going to be soft-ish if we put it close enough to her. For our key light, we want to shape our subject. The point of the key light generally is to shape your subject. So some of you might be watching right now and looking back there and seeing that 3-foot Octa back there, and you're just like, hold on, Daniel. I thought a 3-foot Octa should be the light that you'd use for this. Well, it's a good light source if you're just going to have 1 light. But if we're going to use multiple lights, I like to use a slightly smaller key to shape our subject. It really depends on the subject, obviously. If you were photographing somebody who was, let's say, maybe a little bit older, like me, and you wanted to cover up some of the well-earned wrinkles that I've got from working with these guys, then maybe a bigger light source would be nice. Okay, I'm using an arm here. A C-stand, and we're going to come in. Now when you're setting this up, I'm doing it down low, first of all because it's easier for my back, but also when we use our beauty dish, we want to make sure that we're kind of aiming it, depending on how high you're going to put it, we want to aim it down so she gets light inside of her eyes. We don't create too much of a shadow. So we want a little bit of a dip so we have some contrast, but not too much. There is a grid on this, which means the light is not going to go very far. Even though we are going to use 3 lights here, I'm not going to wait till I get all 3 in here before I take an image. We'll get each light in, and then I will show you what they look like. And then you'll see how and why we'll add additional lights. Probably a little bit taller with this one. All right, this is probably facing down a little bit too much. There we go. Part of the angle of this is going to be determined by how you intend to have your subject facing. She's going to be basically looking straight ahead at the camera, so she's good like this. If I was going to have her chin up, then I could do a steeper angle, and if I was going to have her chin down, I'd want to make sure it was flatter. So we get, again, light inside the eyes. That's the important part. That's my A light. So I'm going to come over here. Now, you might be looking at the studio right now and say, hey Daniel, there's a lot of light in the studio. And I would say, yeah, that's because it's October. Soon. What's that?
I did take a stop out of the camera.
Yeah, you take a stop out of the cameras because it's very bright in here today. But that's not going to matter to us, because what we're going to do is we're going to set our camera so that none of the light in the space is affecting our shot. This is one reason why you might want more powerful flashes or less powerful flashes, to answer that kind of question number 2 or 3 or whatever number of question I said that was. What we're going to do is we're going to turn our flash off, and we're going to set our camera at its lowest aperture. Edit that in the post. We're going to set the camera at its lowest ISO within the normal range. In this camera, that is 100. We're going to set our shutter speed at its maximum shutter speed in order to synchronize with flashes. For this camera, that's about 200th of a second. And then we're going to adjust our aperture until we get a black frame. Because I'm using a mirrorless camera, I can just kind of look. And I can see at f8, it's pretty dark here. And I could dial down. I mean, I can see here that if I go down to about...
Do it in live view.
So, yes, I'm going to do it in the live view because this is going to be a new tip here today. Every once in a while, I like to throw something new at you guys, because I've got this question before. I usually do this, and then I go in Capture One, and people say, well, how do you know if you're not using Capture One? You know, how would we know how much underexposed we are? Well, what we can do is we can take our aperture, and we can open it up until we start to see her. So let's say about f4. Then we can close down about 2 stops. So 4 to 5, 6 to 8 is 2 stops. That means that theoretically when we shoot this, which we're going to do right now, we should be roughly 2 stops underexposed. So here's our image we just shot. I'm going to capture one again. I'm going to grab my exposure slider. I'm going to bring it up, and we should start to see her around with 2 stops. And there she is, right around there. So we know we're 2 stops underexposed. That means that we have some room to move. That's our shadow base, right? So we can bring our lights in. If we have no lights at all, we have a black frame, which means anything in the shot is my fault. Including Marissa, yep. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to leave the top of her head in partially for this shot, because, you know, for you guys. And there we go. Now we can see that we've got a grid, so it's very dramatic. It's giving shape to her face. We can see the cheekbones. It's kind of dark in the eyes, but we do have light in her eyes. You know, you can just, in post, we just make her, no, I'm just kidding. So that's basically where we're at. Now, if I just had the one light, I would need to adjust my angle and such, but I'm not going to just use one light. I'm going to use a second light, which is a fill light. This light is going to help make the shadows more reasonable, where we want them to be. That is going to be this light here. This is a Profoto B10 in a 3-foot octagon softbox. I'm going to put it behind the camera. I think is a good place to put it to start with. This is what we call on-axis fill, because it's behind the camera. It is on the same axis as the camera. It's going to basically come in the front, fill in the shadows. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. Since this is big, I usually put it pretty flat. If you had a slightly smaller box, I would tilt it slightly so you keep a similar angle, because what you definitely do not want to do is create 2 sets of shadows. That's very important here. Okay, so what we do now is we take our A light, which is our key light, we're going to turn it off. And we take our C light, which is this light here, we turn it on. I'm using TTL right now, guys, which is through the lens metering, and we're going to let it make a photo. Oops, I'm going to take 2 photos just for good measure. Okay, perfect. All right. We only need the first one. So you can see a couple of things here. Number 1, terrible light. But that's because this is not our key light. Remember, this is our fill light. But if you can also see there's a bit of a shadow here, that is because the beauty dish is blocking it. That's fine. It's not going to affect us much. So we can see it comes from the front, fills in all those potential shadows, but it's too bright. We don't want our fill light to be bright. We want our fill light to be like maybe a couple stops under. So I'm going to come over here, switch to manual. I'm going to turn the light down 2 stops. Then I'm going to take my A light and turn it back on. I'm staying in manual. And that should give us a bit of a filled in shot. There we go. And now we can start to mess with this, right? Now we have much cleaner light on our face, but still shadows, so we can start to play around with exposure and posing and stuff like that. But we're not done yet. It's important not to tweak all your lights until you get all your lights in. So we're going to use one final light for this, for our 3-point light, and then we'll tweak And that is going to be a hair or separation light. I'm going to use this one over here. This is a Profoto B10 again. It is in a Shimura. I'm going to put it on this side. What's that? This is in a Shimura extra small softbox. So let's see. I'm going to turn off these lights. And once again, we're just going to use TTL to get ourselves there. Now, if you, sorry, she wasn't ready, but that's okay. Oh, look at that, a little bit of brightness coming across, a little flare. All right, so now we have this light here. It's a little bit hot, but we can start. So with everything in place, I'm going to turn all my lights back on.
What is the right angle or height to get catch lights?
What is the right angle or height to get catch lights? Well, in order to get a catch light, remember your eye is round, should be anyways, and wet, right? So if you want to practice getting reflections on something round and wet, what I recommend doing is photographing cherries or grapes. It's a great way to see how the light falls on them and figure out what it's going to do reflection-wise. But basically what you want to do is the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflectance, right? So we need to make sure that, like if the beauty dish, we need to make sure the light bounces back towards the lens in order to see it. So if the beauty dish one's not really going to give us much of a catch light, but this one is because of its angle. So it really depends on your subject and where they're facing. Hopefully that made sense. Definitely sounded like a lot of techno babble. All right, here we go.
Catch lights should be after the...
Yeah, and the catch light is really something that you want to think about. All right, you can see also now it's more properly angled with her full head not in the shot. See how much nicer that looks? Okay, so we've got a few things going on here. The background light, or the separation light rather, is too hot by a little bit, probably like half a stop. Our fill light is probably fine. I feel like our key light is a bit dull as well because she looks a little underexposed. So I'm going to come in and make some adjustments. The key light is A. I'm going to bring it up a third of a stop. The separation light, the background light, is B. I'm going to bring that down half a stop. And we're going to do another test. I may also slightly adjust the angle of Marissa's chin or the key light depending on what this looks like. Okay, so now I think our exposure looks better. It's still a little bit dark in her eyes. So we have two options here because I don't think if I give it more power, it's not going to help. We can either have her put her chin up. We'll do that first. That's the easiest thing. I mean, not too much, but yeah. Good, like that. That will help. But I don't necessarily know that I want to keep her chin up, but that's one solution. Right? This is a great solution if you're doing a beauty shot, because that's a very classic beauty angle, but it's also a good if you can't control your light. Like let's say you're outside, right? This is a good way to get the shadows controlled.
What lens?
The lens I'm using is a 24 to 70 Nikon lens f4, and the camera is a Nikon Z6ii. But let's say we don't want to do that. The way that we got rid of the shadows in her eyes was simply by matching the angle of the beauty dish to her face. So if we want her face to be flat towards us, the way we do that is we need to change the angle of the beauty dish. Simple as that. So we make the beauty dish more flat. And we lower it down. I think that one of the things we need to consider when we're lighting, which I think a lot of people miss until they've done it a little bit, is your lights generally are going to be real close. You're building a fort of lights around yourself, almost always. You can be lower now, you can be straight on with your face. Now I am in manual and I did change the angle of the light, so it might be a little hot, but we'll see. No, it's fine. Cool. So that's our two options. So here if you want to do like a nice, like flat, straight on look, and we can see here, right, because her face was straight on, and because of the angle of the beauty dish, we have a catch light from the beauty dish, and we also, right there, and we also have a catch light from the main light behind her. So we have two catch lights, but we only have one shadow because we're matching angles. This to me is still a little bit hot.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you know how you always crop the top of the head and we do that like cinematic kind of thing?
Yeah.
If someone says they try all the time and they don't think it looks right, do you have any advice for how to actually frame for that?
Ah, okay. So we're talking about framing where you chop off part of the head. It's like a running joke because a lot of people ask me that. If you watch a lot of movies, you see that when they get in for the close-up shots, they typically come in and chop off the top of the head. So it creates a little bit more dynamicism. If you want to get, you don't have to exactly follow this, but I would think about the rule of thirds is the simplest way to look at this. If we want to keep her eyes, if you're going to cut off part of her head, you want to make sure her eyes are somewhere in that rule of third area, right? Which is like right around here. It's probably technically like right here where this eye is. So right, and I'll show you a couple examples. Like if you do this, we'll do a couple of bad ones first. So you stay where you are, I'm just gonna move the camera. So if I do this, right, where I'm just topping off the very tip of her head, that probably doesn't look very good, right? It looks like I didn't frame it correctly. If I go too low like this, right, also probably doesn't look very good, right? So what we wanna do is look, and you'll get used to doing it subconsciously the more you do it. We want to actually consider that rule of thirds. There's actually a rule of thirds thing on this, but I have no idea how to bring it up. At least, and again, you don't have to put them 100% in the third, but you see how much different that looks when you do that. It's all about cropping it in the right spot. Not this one, but more like that, somewhere in that range anyways. That backlight is really still hot. I think it's because of the angle of the light. It's just, I don't want to keep lowering the power. So I'm just going to feather it off. So feathering the light means we're just going to turn it and swing it slightly to the side. Let's get one tricked out, properly exposed. Here, I'll even move her over a little bit. There we go. All right, so here we are. We've got an image. It's got some depth. You know, we've talked about this before. You want shadow. You just want to control it with the fill light. That is 3-point lighting. Now, you could use a fourth light, right, and light the background as well, right? Sometimes the light in the space becomes an additional light for you, but my light on my subject is my 3-point. Now, what's it?
Would you consider a reflector?
Right, would I consider a reflector? Yes, good question, getting ahead of things. Let's say we only have 2 lights. What would be one solution? One solution would be to replace what we're going to call the active fill light, which is the softbox, with a reflector. Something like this piece of foam core here. This is a Brooklyn reflector. You can get them on Seth's website. They're $312 plus shipping. All right, so.
Kidding.
I'm kidding. They're actually $299. All right. All right, so we'll move this guy out of the way. This is, again, in my C group. That was my fill lights. Let's remove this for a second. Let's see what we got. Let's recycle back to where we began. Let's say we only have 2 lights. I'm going to go back again to just my key light. So I'm going to get rid of the hair light as well. And let's just take a shot with just the beauty dish. Right, and we can see that maybe the shadows are a bit more than we want. Now, the way we're going to temper this, right, is we're going to use a reflector. So when you're using a reflector, this is going to sound simple, but it's one of the key concepts of using a reflector. You have to have light to reflect back. So if we look at where our light is positioned now, it is going to be very difficult to get any of this light to bounce back. So if we bring this in as best we can, yeah, we've got to lower it because it can't be in the photo, of course. Okay, like right there. We'll do it the best we can with this. Okay, a little bit, right? Not a lot.
So 1 or 2 hair lights, is it worth it to buy a new light that has separation from both sides?
Is it worthwhile to have 2 hair lights so you separate from both sides? That becomes a stylistic concern or decision. Having light from both sides is often, it's a look, let's say. It's kind of more glamorous, for lack of a better word. It always reminds me of the movie Firestarter, right, where all the light's coming from the back. Most commonly, you wouldn't use a hair or separation light from both sides. If you want to do it, though, you can do it with a single light, and actually we'll do that. Because you asked, we'll do that in a second. All right, so here's the issue. We're getting a little bit of fill because we have the reflector, but not nearly as much as we would like, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to think about this. How can we get more? We have a couple of options. The first option would be to remove the grid. That'd be the most obvious option because what a grid does is it narrows the spread of light. If we remove the grid, it's going to spread the light more. We'll have more to pop back. The other option, if you really wanted the grid because you wanted the control of it, let's say to keep the light off the wall, whatever you wanted, would be to move the light further back and tilt it down more. So we have something to work with. Let's try that first, because I think that's the less common option. Which metering mode am I using? I believe I'm using matrix. Is that correct? Yes. I'm using matrix metering. That's usually where I leave it unless I'm doing something very specific. Nikon prioritizes the face. Most cameras, systems, they're like center weighted is the one that's I think is what they call the Canon one, or that's, I don't know, whatever Canon's one is called. Evaluative, yeah. Center weighted is universal. Okay, so yeah, so if you did use like center weighted, you'd need to make sure that you lock your exposure, you know, using like exposure lock before you, and then like, you know, lock it down and then reframe like we used to do with the old cameras. Could be old fashioned, do it that way. But I like matrix, it works well. I am not a fan of spot. I know a lot of people like to use spot metering for TTL. I find that it doesn't work for me as well. But you know, hey, what am I? Works for Seth, so you definitely can do that. Okay, so I moved this further back. I'm gonna go back to TTL for that reason. Let's take this out for 1 second. So by doing this, we're gonna have two things. It's gonna be a slightly harder light, which again, it shouldn't be too much of an issue here. Okay. And also, this is the more important thing. This is why I did this, to show you. The shadow on her nose and such is going to elongate, right? As well as her neck. Now, you might like that look, but here we might want to definitely work her chin up slightly more so we don't have too much of a shadow on her nose. So we got that, and then we got this coming in, and a reflector, and we'll get a little bit with that. There we go. So now we have slightly less shadow. We've got some fill coming in with the neck. Let's just go straight ahead so people can see the difference. So yeah, just so people can see. We'll give them both options because, you know, we're nice like that. No, with the chin, yeah, there we go. So if you didn't bring the chin up.
Oh, I thought it was.
No, you're good. You would still get, I know the exposure is slightly dark, but you would still get less shadow under the nose that way. I'm just gonna bring the exposure up in capture one so you guys can see what it should look like. If you're doing TTO and you're getting an odd exposure like that, one trick to it is to just, if you're using something like capture one, just move it to where the exposure looks good, like there. Okay, that's like about 2/3 of a stop. Switch to manual. Ooh, nice breeze coming in.
Looking up or looking straight?
We'll increase the light by 2/3 of a stop.
Look up or look
No, straight ahead. Yeah. Boom. And there we go. Now we have the single beauty dish light. So the only issues with this, really, in my opinion, of doing this technique is that your light becomes harder and the angle of the shadow is steeper. If that doesn't bother you because you have nice fill and you don't mind, or some people love the little shadows from the eyelashes, then you are golden to do it this way. Now, let's bring that glamour in. Somebody asked for glamour. They were like, can you get some glamour? And I was like, yeah, I can. So if we want, this is from my friend from Argentina. He used to come to the live demos in the store all the time and used to always ask for the, for the hair light from both sides. So this is for you, my friend. Okay, so we're gonna take our light. By the way, there was a book, a photo book that was put out in 1978 to teach you how to do portraits, and this is how they would do it. So if you like this style, you're rocking it old school. I was just a baby, but I had a camera. All right, so we want to kind of center it as much as possible. I'm shooting a horizontal shot, which is going to make this a little trickier to not have the stand in the shot, but for the purposes of this, I think it'll be fine. All right. I was getting a call on my watch, so let me, just like James Bond or Batman. All right. I can see it in the shot. Let me just raise it a little bit. No, you're good. Yes, and it's also going to hit the reflector. Got a little extra bonus here. A little bonus for you guys that are watching at home. The reflector's in the shot, though. Good. All right, that's fantastic, except we didn't turn the light on. All right, I'm going to turn off my key light for a second, which is the A light. I'm going to turn on the hair / separation light. I'm going to put it in TTL, and we're going to see what we get here. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, she's like, whoa. Now, what we need to be wary about this is we're going to get a lot of kickback on the reflector. And if we don't balance our light correctly, what we're going to get is shadows going up, which is not generally what we want. Sometimes you want it, but not generally for just a pretty shot of Marissa. All right. So let's take the A head, this one right here, turn it back on. Let's go to manual, and let's take a shot. And then we'll balance out our exposures as we go. There we go. All right, so here we have I guess it's not completely centered, but it's pretty good. What's that?
Yeah, my hair frizz kind of makes like a nice halo.
Yes, this is where like your retoucher will hate you because of the hair frizzing. But yes, this is how you do it. Single light in the back. Honestly, the better option here generally is to use a strip bank. I just didn't have one set up. So that will give you a little bit more movement. But here you get not only the separation behind the hair, you also get the little shoulders and everything like that. So if you want that classic hair light style, that's how you do it. Now I'm gonna put this out here because someone, I think it was around 1979, said to use grids for hair lights. Now let me know in the comments if you've ever heard that you should use a grid for a hair light. Because the answer to that is no, you don't want to use a grid for a hair light. It's going to be too condensed, it's going to collapse. We want the hair light to spread because we want to highlight the hair. So we don't want to use a grid for a hair light. This cough is killing me. Okay, so let's just, because I'm a little crazy, a little bit, let's really glam her out by putting this directly behind her head. Because there's no one who's ever called themselves a photographer that hasn't stuck a light right behind somebody's head. This is the classic thing that we do. Why we do it, it's really unclear, but we do it. All right, so we're gonna take this light, we're gonna put it right behind her head, and we're gonna do the blast shot.
What if you don't have an arm and you want that?
Yeah, if you want that blasty shot, you don't have an arm, you can't get in the position. This is also sometimes nice if you throw like a gel on it, and you can really make it just like a real poppy, like a 80s hair metal, which is exactly how Marissa's dressed right now, so perfect. All right, the stand is right behind you, so be wary. Luckily, this head is not very big, so we'll get it right behind her. All right, it's hiding behind her. I'm gonna look through the camera. Because I'm that kind of guy, I'm just gonna leave the settings the same, even though it's gonna be way too bright, because we want to rock it. Pow! Boom!
Amazing.
There she is. That is what you want when you want somebody to rock. So you can do that as well. I find it doesn't feel as natural because it's kind of ripping from behind her. So ideally you want some kind of boom arm. You want to put the light up, put it between. You'll get a nice even shot. Which, even though at this point it's frizzy, obviously you'll put some spray or something to keep it down, but you get the idea of how it'll work.
No, it's rock.
Yeah.
Hair and rock.
It's hair rock. What's that? All right, I can drop the exposure. Seth is calling me out. All right, what do you think, 2 stops? I've evaluated this.
Do you want me to have the reflectors?
Nah. Boom. No reflector. Look at that. No, it's perfect.
The eclipse of Marissa.
Now we have the eclipse of Marissa. Now, if we really want to make this work, am I already off the rails? I'm off the rails already. That's all right. I'm on the crazy train. Yeah, of course. This is like the sun. If you want to imitate the sunlight.
CTO on a redhead? How original.
Nobody has ever done this before. This is the first time ever in all of YouTube.
What's that called again? A gel? What is that?
This is, I have actually done one thing that was never done before on YouTube. All right, here we go. Ah. Boom. Now we got the warm. Marissa's rocking it. So I turned the power down and I put the gel on it so it absorbed it. But let's do this. Do like where you put your head slightly to the side. Yes, we can get the light. No, go the other way. Yes, we can get the light. Yeah. Boom.
Ooh.
Now she's like she's on stage. Okay, just being silly now, but you get the idea. You can do a lot with 2 lights if you actually do it properly, like this one, right?
Watch that reflector with it.
What's that?
If you use the reflector, you're gonna watch getting that bounce back CTO.
Yeah, if you're going to use a reflector, you got to be careful because it'll bounce the CTO back and then she'll get warm skin, unless that's what you want, of course. So we can see that we can get this shot, which is a little bit more controlled and refined, but we can also get a pretty nice shot with just 2 lights as well, right? We can definitely pull it off with the reflector. What we lose by having only 2 lights here is a little bit of control on our fill. This can be relevant if you're shooting, because we get this question a lot. This is the stream where I keep saying that for some reason. Where if you're, let's say, shooting a lot of different people, like you've got some young people, you know, coming in and you want to do that like punchier light, and then you've got like Marissa, middle-aged, you want to kind of have a softer light, and then old people like me, and even softer light. You want, that's where the softbox comes in, because the on-access fill will allow you to control the depth of the shadows. With the reflector, it's a little bit trickier to do. So that's what you gain by having the 3rd light there.
Wow, you got Cliff and Ab in the chat.
Cliff and Ab, woohoo! Uh-oh, I gotta bust out my light meter. All right. Since Cliff's in the chat, I can't go down to any fewer lights because Profoto wants you to buy as many lights as possible. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so let's say that you still want to come up with a refined shot, but you only have 1 light. Daniel, I only have 1 light. All right, I've been there. Have you been there?
I mean,
Marissa started off with 3 lights. She's not messing around. All right, but the rest of us, we started off with 1 light. You know, back in the day, I used to have my Novatrons. Seth had his Speedotrons. Still got them. Everything had a Tron on the back. That's how you knew it was good lighting back in the day. It was called Tron. Right, Speedotrons are slow and they're like old robots. Right. In fact, I believe that there was a movie, Godzilla versus Speedotron.
Actually, that would be awesome. We should do something.
like old lights.
Yes, exactly. You know that electric that Godzilla shoots? That's the Speedotrons. But anyways, we're going to go to 1 light. Now, if you're going for something really dramatic and like with maybe the light coming from the back to shape the face, like I often like to do, this beauty dish with grid might be a good option. But since we're trying to create a little bit more of a refined portrait like we just showed there, why don't we start with something that's already going to be a little bit softer to begin with, like perhaps the Octagon. Speaking of movies from the 70s, the Octagon, or was that from the 80s?
The Octagon.
With Chuck Norris? Oh man, the Octagon with Chuck Norris. What's that?
You couldn't name a Chuck Norris movie, but they're all the same movie. Like,
So, yeah, in the Octagon, Chuck Norris does like some karate. There's ninjas, you know, it's a Chuck Norris movie. All right, so we've got the RFI softbox. This is a 3-foot Octagon. It's big light's gonna produce soft light. That's gonna give us our kind of refined look. If we wanna keep this same pattern that we're doing, we're gonna need to kind of put it in front of her. But maybe you don't have a C-stand, or maybe you're like me and too lazy to swing the big box over there. Well, what we can do is put it real close to the camera. Now, I know the first thing they tell you is to take the flash off the camera because you don't want to have the flash right where the camera is. But that's okay, we're gonna put it right where the camera is, because that's for small flashes sitting on top of your camera. The reason why you don't want to flash on top of your camera to create shape and form is because you can't really manipulate it too much, although we've certainly done plenty of speed light demos where you've done that. But point being, we're gonna put it at the angle of the camera, but we're gonna do 2 things to make it more dramatic. One, well, maybe we're only doing 1 thing. Well, no, 2 things. We're gonna raise it up slightly, not too high, and we're gonna tilt it forward. that controls our shadow, right? If the light is flat, all the shadow will go directly back, right? So shadowless equals boring. If we want shadow to shape the face, we want to tilt our light. And this is, again, going to matter how she poses. If she's going to keep her face flat and we tilt it a little bit, it should be enough. If she's going to put her chin up, then we're going to want to give it more tilt. But since we're going to keep her relatively flat because that's where we've been, okay, that's pretty good. Once we get the angle, we raise it, we're there. It's good to hide behind the lights too if you're shy. It's nice. All right, so I'm going to come back and put it in TTL. This is my C light, so I'm going to turn off A and B. We turn C on. Let's see what we get.
What?
Yeah, there we go. All right.
Glass, that's not mine. That's not what I think.
This is the face that Marissa makes. All right, so here we go. We've got, all right, let's do a straight on shot. All right, and you know, here, soft and pretty, background's lit. I should probably save this so it's slightly less refined, right? We've got control, little control. Now, it's not like we can't do anything here, right? We do still have a little bit of shadow because the light's not directly in the middle. We got a little shadow to one side, so we can use a reflector like this. Again, these are Brooklyn reflectors available for sale, limited edition, Kickstarter, Indiegogo. You can catch these on Indiegogo. They are twice as bright as the previous Brooklyn reflector. Okay, so now we've got nice and clean, simple, right? And this is not bad. If you only have one light to live, you got it. That was too easy. Should we add something funky? What are we doing? Questions, thoughts, concerns? I'm going really fast today. I'm going to walk off the set for a second. Let's get a funky reflector. Let's do like a color reflector. Not a color, but like a silver. There we go. All right, so we can try to jazz this up. Is this one of the weird?
That's silver metallic paint.
All right, we'll try it.
It's very reflective.
All right, we're going to bring a little glamour. And what we're going to do, well, yeah, refined. We're going to bring a little pop in, right? It just kind of makes it a little more specular, a little more funky. She's really into it.
I'm not ready.
But what we can do to mix this up a little bit, since we have a reflector, is we can mess with our angle, right? That's kind of flat and nice. It's like, oh, that's nice. But we can indeed. Oh, you know, we'll reach that? No, probably not. Okay. I was trying to be lazy, but I couldn't do it. All right, we're going to go like this. I'm going to tip this down a bit more. Boop. Okay. So what's going to happen here is we're going to have this little kind of in front of overhead style light. What's also good about this is it's almost like you have the light right in front of you. There we go. See now how we've added a little bit more drama here with the angle. I wonder if we can get, now I know what everybody's asking, because people always ask this, can we do some kind of separation light? Not really, right? If we put the light, if we're going to bounce this light past her, then we have no light to, like for instance, if I were to take a reflector and put it here, because of the inverse square law, by the time it reaches the reflector, it's already going to be less light. So even if it bounces back, we're going to not be able to fill it in. But what we can do is reverse our situation. We can flip the script. And what we'll do there is let's take this thing out of here. Let's take this out of here. Get out of here, you giant light. Yeah. So let's say you're on vacation in New York and you end up in the studio here and you're like, oh, I'm gonna make a picture of Marissa because she's standing there. So, and you only have this little tiny softbox and you're like, what can I do? Well, let's play around with light bouncing around, right? We know that reflectors are pretty effective to fill in the shadows. Well, what if we make the shadow the front of her face and we use the light to sculpt her from the side or the back? I know. This is unheard of. Unheard of. Am I hiding? Yeah, I'm gonna move it. Get the stand out of the way. All right. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is take this light. I'm just getting it safe. When you're doing a demo, sometimes you're moving stuff around too quickly. You just gotta make sure that you're good. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this light. Now I could very easily, obviously, light her from the front with it to make some drama for your mama. But if we think about how light works, if we want to do both a separation light and a key light, we need our separation light almost always, well, always really, to be brighter than our key. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this light source, and I'm gonna have Marissa kind of, this is not gonna be a straight on shot anymore because we're gonna, and because of the space, no, the other way. Because of the space we're in, it's gonna be better to go this way, slightly profile. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do the thing that I always like to do at this point of the day. You know what it is, Pinky?
Same shot you've done for 37 years.
Yep, this is my signature shot. All right. What we want to do is use a single light to light her up. Now I could balance the light with the light coming through the windows, but that would be cheating. So if we think about it, we want this light to light the front of her. So what I'm going to do is take my light, I'm going to move it out so just the edge of it is giving her this like kick of hair light, right? So my light's actually way over here. And then with this part of the light, I can kick it back in onto her. I'll try the silver reflector, although I think it might be too much, but you know, you never want to nail it the first time. You got to always get like that, I think would be. All right, let's just see what we get here. And we can adjust. Oh yeah, there we go. It's not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, so it's more dramatic, obviously. I think I'm going to go this way with it. It's even more dramatic than I thought it was going to be. So much, you know, you can face forward. I'm risking it. We're doing it. I was trying to take the easy way out, but we don't take the easy way out around here on OnSet. Here on OnSet, we don't take the easy way out. We always make it way more complicated. No. All right, so I'm actually going to use the white reflector as well, because this custom silver reflector is, you know, special. All right, so we're going to see what we get here. And again, our refinement is not going to be as much as it could be. All right. Not hitting directly, okay. I will use the silver because I can see it better. Because it's bright in here, sometimes it's tricky to, there we go. There it is, boom. It might still be too hot on her hair light, but okay. So this is a beginning, right? We can see it's not bright enough, but we can see that it's lit in here. The hair light's gonna be way too bright. And we have it on her nose, but those are just little problems that we can take care of. All we have to do is this. If I move it slightly closer and slightly higher, and then we're probably just gonna have to move your nose slightly this way. Keep going, away from the camera, away from the light. Keep going. No, more than slightly then. Very much that way. A little more with the nose. There we go. Good, good, good. I think this is good, and then we're going to work the exposure.
I think you have to do almost off axis from her.
On the what?
Like from this side of the face, because you have to let the reflector hit. It's not hitting because it's feathering into the reflector. You know what I mean? So it's almost like you have to go from here.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay, okay. Thank you, Seth. I'm also going to give myself a little, I'm going to switch to manual at this point, because I know that I need about 1.5 stops more power. So we don't continue to shoot underexposed images. Oh, actually the reflector might have been in the shot that time. No, it wasn't. There we go.
Wow.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so now this is more even. We've got more light on this side. It was still a bit dark over here though, which is what I was trying to do. So now that we've got this, that was good. Thank you, Seth.
You want to grip it? Or...
No, I'm going to try to get it in the middle because I feel like I can pull it off if I think I got light on your nose again though. Yeah, we're almost there. There's just that tiny bit of light on your nose that we need to deal with, which I'm just going to go like this. Look straightforward for me. This is why modeling lights are nice. What I'm trying to do here is get the light to give her that bit of a hair light, but also not hit her nose too much. A little more. Oh, you know what I gotta do? You know what I gotta do, guys? Well, I'm just gonna move it for now. We'll move the stand in a second. I think this is what we gotta do. I think we gotta go full frontal. I'm gonna have to boom it. It's gonna totally be behind her head for this one shot, but I just wanna see if this is gonna give us the right angle. Yeah, there we go. Okay, perfect. Let me just boom this so we don't have a stand sticking out the back of her head. Marissa will recite some lines from Macbeth while we do this.
Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble. Actually, what? Yeah, that's from Macbeth. That's the witches.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I thought you were going to do, is this a dagger I see before me? Isn't that Macbeth? So Marissa is definitely more like one of the three witches than Lady Macbeth is what we got here.
Actually, I should have Macbeth though. I've only read it once.
Let me know your favorite Shakespearean work in the comments, and next time we do this, Marissa will recite parts of it for you.
Yeah, I'll come back with a monologue.
Marissa will come back with a monologue next time for when I'm setting this up. All right, so again, we're not going to be as refined here. That's kind of the point of all this, is that we can get things, but they're not going to be as refined. Right, so now, not bad. So we have this. What?
No?
That's the one who's saying.
No, it's not.
No, that's Macbeth. It starts off with the witches.
Macbeth. You're wrong.
Or maybe they're just requesting Tempest?
Oh, the request and tempest. There we go. Well, that makes more sense.
If I can remember it.
I don't know that I've read the Tempest, so there you go. All right, so here we go. We have three options here. I'm going to be honest. I kind of dig in the single light. It's a little hot on the hair.
The dead catch light is dope.
Yeah, the lack thereof catch light is good.
Yeah.
We come here. We've got the two lights, a little bit more refined. And here we have our fully refined shot. All of it's possible, and you definitely shouldn't think of these things as, well, I only have one light, I only have two lights, I can't do this, or I can do that. It comes down to what you're looking for, right? If we're trying to get this like, you know, I think we can pull this off. Seth has inspired me. If we strip half right? Come on, we can do that.
Why?
If we strip half the baffle off of this,
Yeah.
then we can kick more light back on here,
Yeah, but
which
you
means,
gotta get a harder. You mean strip off the top?
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Like even fold it in,
yeah.
thank you. All right, so what we're gonna do here, thank you,
wanna
Seth.
double diffuse the other half?
Right, I'm gonna double diffuse the bottom by
You
pushing.
want to double diffuse.
I do, yeah, so if you wanna push it. Yeah, so what we're gonna do here is, Seth is helping me, thank you, Seth. We're gonna take the softbox and we're gonna pull the diffusion down from the top and we're gonna flip it behind. So what we're basically getting is double diffused bottom, which is the part that's hitting the back of her head, and no diffuse or only, well, actually triple diffused technically, because the box itself is diffused. And triple diffused across the bottom, double diffused across the top, which will give us a difference. It's almost like putting, yeah, we'll turn the model left so you guys can see. All right, so what we got here is the light's coming from the back. It's going through one level of diffusion at the top. It's gonna come back here, we're gonna bounce it. Then this here is going through two more levels of diffusion, which means that this exposure on the back of her head will be darker, relatively speaking. So that's what we gotta do here. So let's see how this works out. I'm feeling positive about this. Actually, I need the modeling to be able to see it because I have not mastered the position yet. Nope. All right, thank you, Seth.
Oh, I think I blinked.
Uh-oh. There we go. She's blinky. She's blinky in the brain. Okay, well, it's too bright now, obviously, because I didn't change anything. I'm going to go down and drop about 2/3 of a stop out of this thing. What's nice about the silver reflectors, you definitely can see it. There we go. All right, now, one light. That is refinement. We still have a little flyaway action, but it's not too bad. I mean, look at how clean that light is, right? A single light coming from the back, bouncing off this silver reflector that you can get on Seth's website now at a discounted price. No, you actually did build, you made this one here though, right? Yeah, if you want to see a video of Seth making this, check out Last Ex-Witness on YouTube. He's got a video where he makes it. He'll throw a link in the chat. It's pretty cool. You guys can make your own reflectors at home. Just make sure that you, you know, shout Seth out whenever you use it in your videos. Okay. There we go. Oops, I think I missed one. All right, so here we go. We've got triple light, nothing light. We don't want that one. Let's stop. Boop. All right, here we go. We got single light source bouncing from the back, giving us a beautiful beauty light, right? A butterfly style light across the front of her face using a silvered reflector board and a softbox from the back. We also have, you know, here's the same thing, but without doing the double diffusion trick that I just showed you there. So you got that. We also have up here, where's our double lights? There we go. Double light. Honestly, they're kind of similar. This one's a smidge darker. To be honest, I kind of like the reflector the reflector better. And when we come in here, we then have the fully refined shot that we have total control over. And there we go. Thank you. I cannot remember who emailed me and told me that you could do that. If you have three things selected and you hold down shift and you double click, they all get bigger and smaller at the same time. I don't have the email in front of me. Thank you. It's good that you guys email me and tell me how to use Capture One because sometimes I forget. All right. Wow. Anything?
Just everyone's saying they appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We're actually short today, but that was it. I was flying. Do you have anything you wanted to do? Do you want to take a picture of me?
Your workshop.
Oh. If you are in New York or the New Jersey area, there's actually some spots left at my workshop. I'm doing on Sunday, October 23rd. Marissa will be modeling. We'll be doing this kind of stuff, and you'll get to shoot it, and then you can come home with your own picture of me, or maybe Marissa.
On his Instagram stories.
There is a link on my Instagram story. Follow me over there on Instagram, Daniel Norton. Follow Marissa at Marissa Roper, Marissa.Roper.
Marissa.Roper.
Not Marissa Roper. She's nice enough, but she's not our Marissa. Marissa.Roper, and of course, Seth is over there at Last Ex-Witness on all social stuff. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe to Adorama TV for more videos like this. Click like, ring the bell. Do you know what's going on next week?
Gavin.
Gavin will be here next week. Oh, and your Halloween thing.
Well, Gavin's doing a Halloween shoot.
Oh, awesome. On Monday in the store, Tuesday, Seth is doing a demo that will not be streamed. So sorry if you guys are a distance away, but if you're local, come to the store, the Adorama store that is, 42 West 18th Street, check that out. Next Thursday on YouTube, you've got Gav and Hoey, gonna do some Halloween. I didn't know they had Halloween over there in the old Great Britain.
But happy Halloween, we won't see you.
Why not?
He's live next week, and then after Halloween, it's after Halloween when you go live again.
All right, that's it. We won't see you until after Halloween. Make sure you get lots of candy. You know, check it to make sure that there's no like weird like stuff. If you get any Charleston shoes, send them to me. Nobody wants those Charleston shoes. Just send them. I will take care of them.
Tell people to hit like and subscribe.
Hit like and subscribe, not describe. Do not describe. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, you're done.
And we're done.